So Raya and the Last Dragon released recently, and after a wait time of almost 5 years for a brand new original story by Disney, to say the very least, I was pretty excited. So today, having watched and digested the movie's plot, I have a few thoughts about Disney's newest installment. So be warned for spoilers ahead if you haven't watched the film. The plot revolves around a princess named Raya, whose tribe's responsibility is to protect an ancient gem that harnesses the power of ancient dragons to keep the world safe from evil spirits named Droon. Her father explains that it's coming to her time to protect the gem, but also to help him reunite the tribes into their once harmonious nation, Kamandra. Despite the tribe's rivalries, he invites them to a gathering to build trust and friendship, and whilst Raya is initially skeptical, she puts her faith in her father and attempts to build a rapport with the new generation, namely a fellow princess from another tribe. However, she gets duped, and all the tribes fight for the sacred gem, which breaks and causes the return of the Droon. 6 years on, and without her tribe or her father, Raya travels in search of Sisu, the last remaining dragon, in an effort to recover the remaining orb pieces that were lost in an attempt to bring back the people turned to stone as a consequence of the Droon. A ragtag mission takes place where Sisu and Raya meet several new characters that aid them on their quest to obtain the gem pieces. And whilst this is all happening, the Princess Namari that tricked Raya all those years ago tracks them down in an attempt to obtain the orb pieces for her own tribe. Throughout the journey, Sisu attempts to encourage Raya to trust others, including Namari, much like her father once believed. And despite her initial hesitation, Raya opens up, and the team attempts to form a truce with Namari to obtain the final orb piece to bring everybody back. However, things get twisted when Namari threatens them and demands the remaining orb pieces for herself. This results in Namari killing Sisu and running back to the temple. An all-out war then begins between the Droon and the citizen of Namari's tribe, who are no longer protected due to Sisu's death. Raya and Namari then confront each other one last time, where Namari blames Raya equally for the chaos that's ensued. Raya, however, attempts to be more like Sisu and her father and attempts to reunite her friends and Namari to put together the orb, in the hope that they can bring everybody back from the Droon. They entrust Namari to make things right before they all turn to stone. This level of trust, mirroring the dragon's actions all those years ago, brings them and all the people back that had turned to stone. Raya's father's dream for a united Kamandra comes true, and the dragons once again have a place in their rebirthed land. So we'll start off by talking about the animation, and wow. Pixar's constantly heralded as the leading animation department in terms of quality, and I have to say that this movie was on par with that. The lighting, the textures, the variations in setting, it all felt like a big show-off by the animation department. It felt like such a joy to experience the effort and detail poured into the visual choices of the film. Moving on to characters, this movie definitely delivers a wide range of personalities and doesn't single out a particular character purely for the purpose of comedic relief. Sisu, whilst hilarious, is funny in an almost naive and endearing way. Boone, Little Noi and Tong all have their moments and quirks that make them individually funny, but that isn't their only relevance to the story. All three have their own little dynamics and quirks and skills that make them intriguing and interesting parts of the team. In terms of villains, it was actually a nice change of pace for the villain to not really be completely evil, but rather just selfish. It was more a battle over resources and power to protect their own people. Overall, I'd say the characters were pretty good, but nothing groundbreaking. The plot itself is well constructed and struck the right balance of pacing and keeping your interest. I really enjoyed the mythology and the variations of characters and their different personalities. However, I do feel like there was one big gaping hole in the plot that I just didn't agree with. The message. So overall, the idea of the story seems to be that you need to learn to trust and be vulnerable amongst others, as that actually makes you stronger as a whole. And whilst on the surface this is good messaging, I do feel like there comes to a point where just blindly trusting someone, despite all other signals from them being that they wouldn't behave in the communal best interest, is a pretty poor lesson to teach. Call me cynical, but to have a character that literally spends the entire time she's known you, consistently attack you, break your trust multiple times, threaten betrayal despite your repeated attempts to forgive them, then literally murder the last dragon who was basically your best friend, and then blame you saying that you're equally guilty for trying to stop her. What a narcissistic guilt trip. And then trusting them with the entire fate of humanity just because it's what the dragons would have wanted. And then everything's okay because everything goes back to normal? That doesn't fly with me. You shouldn't be encouraging your audience to blindly trust and continue a toxic friendship just because there's a chance of a good atom buried somewhere beneath their heartless soul. It really put me off that the end of the movie was basically, oh, you almost wiped out humanity? It's all good. It was a really disappointing end, as I felt like all the other pieces were there for a really, really good story. Since Moana, I've been really highly anticipating the next original story from Disney, and whilst Raya was good, it wasn't great. It didn't capture me the same way that something like Zootopia did, for instance. But now I want to throw it to you guys. What did you think of Raya and the Last Dragon? Did you like it? Hate it? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.